If you're new at raising money and you're going into this process, you often have a lot of confidence. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect and how it impacts your capital raising. Now, the reason why this is so important is because we get calls into the office all the time. So, situation is, founder calls into the office, says, Steve, I'm looking to raise money. Fantastic. How much are you looking to raise? And it seems to be always the same. We're looking to raise $1 million at a $10 million valuation, and we're just starting out. You'd be amazed at how common this is. But what then happens is they then highlight to me how they want their capital raising done. So the way I'm looking for my capital raising is I want to have as minimum investors as possible. Minimum, I want them to invest $500,000. We're like, okay. When we hear this set of scenarios, we know where they're at when it comes to the Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay, so let me go through this. So the first part of the Dunning-Kruger effect is right at the start. Now, as you can see in this image right here, when someone calls into our office and they highlight that situation, we know that they're at the peak of Mount Stupidity, right? Doesn't mean they're stupid, but we've all made this mistake. Completely overvalue what we're doing and unrealistic with our expectations. The other part they like to say is, oh, we want to raise that money in like 1 to 2 months. And it's like, okay, that's just not even feasible. Okay, so the reason we like to highlight this is because when you start out absolutely overconfident. So once again, that peak of Mount Stupidity. Then what happens is you start to get rejection. When you start to get rejection, then you go into what's highlighted in the next one as the Valley of Despair. So you start to think to yourself, am I going to get this capital raising away? Can I do it? What have I gone wrong? Does my idea suck? Does my business suck? You start to question yourself. You start to worry about every single part. This is so common, you would not believe it, right? But it has such a role to play when you're actually raising money. As you start to churn up these rejections, you start to get some momentum, you hit this stage where you realize, do you know what? I actually know nothing. And I can tell you, I still feel like this some stage today. I said, sometimes in doing this, I've had great days, some other days I had frustrating days. Some days you feel like you're being accepted, so other days you're feeling like you're being rejected. This is also, this is the emotional cycle that deal makers go through, people that are professionals at raising money. It is no different for anyone, okay? So understand that's part of the process. So the next part is that as you're going through the stage, you can see it starts to curve up, right? You can see that curve going up. That's what we call the stage of enlightenment. So this is where you move into that conscious incompetence. You know that you don't know, right? The first part, as we mentioned, that's the sort of unconscious incompetence. Then you start to become consciously aware that you're incompetent. Now you actually start to become aware that you start to know what you're doing. You start to become more skilled. For me, the only way that I've actually started to get confidence in my capital raising process, to be as blunt as possible, is by having data, right? Because that data has helped guide me to understand what investors want. And also I've just been consistently speaking with investors over and over. And what I love is I like thesis debates. I love to understand what an investor's thesis is. I like to share my thesis, and I like to understand where they think I'm wrong, right? That's important for me. I don't mind if I'm wrong. I've got very thick skin. I can handle rejection really well, but I love hearing it. I love sharing my thesis, and I love hearing their thesis on different things as well. But that, as you start to become consciously competent, it's just a skill set. The only way you can do that is by speaking to more investors, right? So that's important. And then, as I said, as you move through that, you come to the plateau of sustainability. Don't worry about that phase for the moment because you've got plenty of work to do before you can actually get to that area. It takes years to get to that area of plateau of sustainability. It is such an emotional cycle, but let's go through the 3 stages. At the top, we've got the peak of Mount Stupidity, right? That is when you don't know what you don't know. Then, as you come down, you've got the Valley of Despair. That is when you suddenly realize that you actually don't know. So you become consciously aware that you don't know. Then as you start to learn more, you start to gain more experience, you start to become more competent, right? That's when you actually start to progress. And then, I said, the stages of enlightenment as highlighted. And then obviously, I said, don't worry about if you can get to that last part, you have raised so much money and you've been able to get along the track with what you're doing. So I'm not so much worried about that part. But understand those first 3 stages, because that's how the Dunning-Kruger effect will impact your psychology as you're going through the capital raise. My advice to you is get to the valley of despair as soon as humanly possible and then start working your way up. My other advice is when you go through the capital raising, you need to have analytics as far as so you can understand what's of interest to investors, because that will speed up your process. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got some value out of it. It is a bit of fun sort of talking about this as a topic. If you feel like you're in any of those stages, don't take offense, don't get upset. It's actually where everyone goes through. Like the video, share it with your networks, and I look forward to sharing more content with you.